As the global community is racing to eventually halt the spread of COVID-19, a pandemic that has claimed thousands of lives and sickened tens of thousands of others, Lagos, Nigeria's commercial capital and the epicenter of the virus, have continued to enhance capacity and reviewing its strategy in the fight against the novel coronavirus. But before we begin the show, it is the holy month of Ramadan, the Islamic month of fasting, and we're wishing our Muslim brothers and sisters Ramadan Mubarak. Amade Doja, Salam Adeni.
Ẹni tí ò dé kò yìn ẹkù kan. Àwa ni center of excellence. Ẹni ò dé kò yìn ẹkù kan. Àwa ni center of excellence. Mo ní pé bó o bá dé kò yìn ẹkù kan. Àwa ni center of excellence. Àwọn òyìnbó débẹ̀ wọ́n rí tá a jẹ́ ṣe. Àwa ni center of excellence. Haúsá débẹ̀ wọ́n rí tá a jẹ́ ṣe. Àwa ni center of excellence. Àwọn Ìgbò débẹ̀ wọ́n rí tá a jẹ́ ṣe. Àwa ni center of excellence. Gbogbo Yorùbá débẹ̀ wọ́n rí tí wọ́n mú lọ. Àwa ni center of excellence. Ẹni òde kò yìn ẹkù kan. Èkó ò ní bàjẹ́ lórí àwa. Àwa ni center of excellence. Ọ̀pọ̀ ò bá dé kò yìn ẹkù kan.
The Lagos State government has given a 14-day window for dead bodies in mortuaries to be removed for burial by family of the deceased. After the 2 weeks, the state government may consider mass burials. As part of efforts to limit the spread of the coronavirus, Mr. Babajide Sanwo-olu also said compulsory wearing of face masks is inevitable at this time. Governor Sanwo-olu says these corpses are not COVID-19 deaths, but those that could not be buried over the past few months due to the restrictive measures against the coronavirus pandemic. He added that the state would conduct mass burials for corpses left in the mortuaries after the period of grace. He, however, warned that burials should be limited to 20 persons in attendance.
One of the outcomes of the lockdown is that many families and households have had to postpone funeral plans for their loved ones who have passed away before or during this period. As you might all be aware, many Christian denominations do not carry out funerals during the Lenten season. Funerals are typically kept on hold during this period and scheduled for the period immediately following the end of the Lent. Unfortunately, this year, the COVID-19 lockdown coincided with the end of the Lent season, which caused many families and households to further suspend or put off their funeral plans. Because of this inability to hold funerals occasioned by the restriction on movement, our mortuaries in Lagos State are now getting to the peak. The only reason the mortuaries are getting filled up is because funerals have not been held in the last 2 months or thereabouts. I'm also now constrained to make this appeal to all Lagosians who have corpses of their loved ones in our mortuaries to please go ahead and schedule these funerals. Let me now make it clear that funerals are on the list of activities exempted from the lockdown restriction. You can hold or attend your funeral ceremony in Lagos State as long as you comply with the requirements that were laid out. That we do not have persons at any funeral, including the officiating religious leaders, not exceeding 20. Physical distancing must be maintained at all funeral ceremony. All attendees or mourners must wear a face mask and must ensure that they wash their hands before or after the ceremony. There must not be any form of parties or reception that will accompany these funeral ceremonies.
Mr. Sanwo-olu also says he has signed an order releasing 209 inmates across the correctional centers in the state in order to decongest the correctional centers and safeguard against the deadly pandemic.
Following the recommendation of the Advisory Council of Prerogative of Mercy, signed a release order releasing 209 inmates remanded in our various correctional centers in Lagos. This was done in part to decongest the correctional centers in view of the COVID-19 pandemic, and is also part of a larger effort to bring lasting reform to the administration of criminal justice in our country. The beneficiaries of these releases are following. Some of them are over 60 years old. Some have less than 6 months to go on their sentences. Some have served over 95% of their sentences. Some that are serving for just minor offenses, and some that are found to be physically or mentally challenged are part of the list of the 209 that have signed the order for their release.
Governor Sanwo-olu also said millions of face masks are being procured from various tailoring companies to be distributed across the state to residents free of charge. He advised residents to leave the use of surgical masks to frontline medical workers.
Face mask, like I did mention earlier in the week, will now become a compulsory thing that we must wear at any public gathering. We are currently producing millions of these face masks from our various tailoring companies. We'll start distributing to our citizens free, but certainly cannot go around everyone. And so that's why I want to appeal to members of the organized private sector to please patronize first these local manufacturers and purchase these masks for distribution to your workers and staff immediately. I will also want to urge everyone to please leave the medical grade N95 mask for the use of medical workers who need this most. This is an important season in the life of every Muslim around the world, a commemoration of one of the major pillars of Islam. Ramadan is a time that demands for obedience, that demands for self-denial, demands for self-sacrifice and discipline, and a rededication of one's life to the Almighty Allah. When you want to perform your ablution, please ensure to first wash your hand very well with soap. Since the process of ablution involves the touching of the face, and it is essential to make sure that your hands are clean. Having washed your hands with soap and water, you can then go ahead and perform the ablution as is customary. As you very well know, every action that is taken to prevent the spread of this contagious disease is fully in line with the teaching of the Holy Quran. It is for this same reason that the two holy mosques in Saudi Arabia are currently closed to the public. May the Almighty Allah, who had spared our lives to see this Ramadan month, make it possible for all of us that are here this year to also be here next year.
Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-olu has said that the COVID-19 cases in the state will get worse before it gets better. He said the government is committed to flatten the curve once and for all with continuous review of strategy. Mr. Sanwo-olu said this during another press briefing in Lagos. Governor Sanwo-olu and his team appeared with noses covered with locally made face masks, a signal of a new trend to combat COVID-19 in the state. The issue of stigmatization is hampering government's efforts in combating the coronavirus pandemic, as most people, for the fear of being stigmatized, would rather hide their symptoms rather than submitting themselves for tests.
This pandemic will blow over, and that we can continue to guarantee and assure a sizable percentage of our citizens, you will get well, it will come in, but you will get well at the end of the day. We're looking at a strategy of flattening the curve. And so we are all doing a good job. And what we're seeing is that we'll see spikes, but we're seeing that the curve should be flattening out soon, right? But that is not to say that we'll be out of it in 1 week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Various other strategies will be coming up as we go along, in the weeks and the days to come. Let me once again appeal to all of us, whether we might be in the state, to please stay at home and avoid non-essential movements. The issue of fake and unverified news. I would like to implore us all that we should refrain from sharing news and reports that have not been verified or that seek to cause fear and danger amongst us. We all have an important role to play for not disseminating or amplifying these fake messages. We must also seek to share information that have been issued by appropriate health authorities. Let me remind us, just as the government has a responsibility to its citizens, we as citizens also have a responsibility to government. At a time like this, the most important of those responsibilities include obeying the directive and guidelines that must have been made for the entire safety of our citizens and for our well-being.
On security, Governor Sanwo-olu says they are not resting on their oars.
You will agree with me that the situation has improved considerably in the last couple of days. And this was just as we promised with all of the security operators that were together last week. I'm in constant touch with all of them on a daily basis, and I can assure you that all hands are on deck, and we're sending strongest possible messages to people that want to foment trouble, hoodlums and bandits that want to seek to take advantage of the challenging times that we find ourselves. I'm aware that over 150 various people have been picked up, various criminals, and are currently being prosecuted as we speak. Our people must be able to go to bed with their both eyes closed. Every law-abiding citizen must continue to enjoy the guarantee of safety in their homes and neighborhood. But as for the criminal elements, there will not be any rest for them. There is no room whatsoever in Lagos State for anybody of criminal intention or criminal mind. The patrols and the show of force will continue day and night, and suspects will not only be arrested, they will be charged to court appropriately.
Lagos is recording more cases of COVID-19 in Nigeria because many people from other states prefer to be treated here. But there is need to plan for the worst.
It will get worse before it gets better. Because what it means is very simple. We want to flatten it once and for all. That is not to say that we'll be out of it in 1 week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Various other strategies will be coming up as we go along, in the weeks and the days to come.
As some scientists say, COVID-19 can be transmitted through talking and breathing. Governor Sanwo-olu said it is high time the public went on face masks.
From the literature and what we understand, is truly really to protect you from infecting others. Is to keep whatever is with you, to keep it to yourself, so that you are not passing on what you have.
Experts say the homemade masks cannot prevent someone from getting sick, but they can help prevent the spread of COVID-19 by those with the virus, as significant of individuals are asymptomatic. This year's holy month of Ramadan is no doubt a unique one. As the coronavirus pandemic continues to ravage the world, many Muslim faithful would have to observe their prayers within the confines of their homes. Muslims in Lagos are saying that the restrictions does not in any way impede the good tidings associated with the holy month of Ramadan. We have a special report. In the holiest cities of Mecca and Medina to Iran and Indonesia, saving lives is paramount, and in a nutshell, Ramadan this year will be without the usual congregation. It is Ramadan without mosques, Ramadan without Jumat, Ramadan without tafsir, group sermon, Ramadan without congregational tarawih, Ramadan without community iftar, breaking a fast. Ramadan without itikaf, the seclusion. Ramadan without Umrah, the lesser Hajj. It is Ramadan without Eid, a Ramadan many Muslims have never experienced.
It is a blow under the belt. Trying period for us as Muslims and trying period for our faith.
Everything about Islam is remove hardship and promote goodness. You rather stay home for months than to stay underneath 6 feet for ages.
Many of the world's estimated 2 billion Muslims observed the third pillar of Islam by abstaining from food and drink from dawn to sunset for 29 to 30 days as an act of worship and to strengthen their relationship with God through fervent prayers.
You can pray in your house. Almighty Allah is omnipresent. It's everywhere. And everywhere is a mosque except the graveyard and the toilets. God has ordained this to happen to teach us sense.
In this hadith, the Prophet says in Bukhari 2829. You also find it in Muslim 1914. And it says, the affected patient will remain in his house with patience and expectation of reward, knowing that nothing will befall him other than Allah's decree will attain the reward of a martyr.
The 9th month of the Islamic calendar is the one in which the Holy Quran was revealed to Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, on one of the last 10 nights of the month, known as the Night of Power. The breaking of fast or iftar at sunset is usually a communal affair for Muslims in Ramadan. So is the Taraweeh, the extended prayer.
Taraweeh is optional. You can pray it at home, and the most important thing is the 5 times daily prayers.
Governments worldwide have urged people to physically distance from one another.
All public parks.
In Lagos State, government first announced a partial shutdown in the state on Sunday, 22 March 2020.
I am now hereby also directing that all public officers in the entire unified public service from grade level 1 to 12, which constitute about 70% of our entire public workforce, should stay at home from Monday, 23rd March 2020 for 14 days at the first instance.
Government order for a full lockdown commenced on 30th of March and the extension on 13th April.
It has become necessary to extend the current restriction of movement in Lagos and Ogun states, as well as the FCT, for another 14 days, effective from 11:59 p.m. on Monday, 13th of April 2020.
So far, Muslims have lost more than 5 Jumat prayers consecutively, especially in Lagos State, the epicenter of the COVID-19 pandemic in Nigeria. Sheikh Robiu Adebayo in his 80s had witnessed a situation similar to this.
Lẹ́yìn ìgbà tí wọ́n jagun second war kan ti ọdún kejì, ó ní àrùn ìgbóná káàkiri gbogbo ayé, ẹnìkan ò tiẹ̀ lè lọ mọ́sálásí, ẹnìkan ò lè jáde lọ bí kankan. Ṣùgbọ́n ọdún eléyìí náà ti ṣẹlẹ̀ rí tipẹ́tipẹ́ ní tí wọ́n ti Káàbà náà. Kò kàn pẹ́ tó rú eléyìí.
In Mecca, Saudi Arabia, the Grand Mosque is usually packed with pilgrims from across the world. But last month, Saudi authorities suspended all prayers at the 2 main mosques in Mecca and Medina to prevent the spread of COVID-19.
You are in a state of misfortune. You can imagine the number of lives that has been lost. You can imagine the number of businesses that have already collapsed, that even if this embargo is lifted, only God, only the grace of God will lift such businesses back on its feet.
So many things that Allah has asked us not to do, forbidden us from doing it. He forbid us from doing so many of these things. Men are sleeping with men, women are sleeping with women. It happened during the time of Noah, and he destroyed them.
Anabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam oni idha kasara tagun arsalallahu ta'un oni tí ìkọjá ààlà bá pọ̀ fún àwọn èdè ènìyàn tí wọ́n ń ṣe sọ́lọ́run ọba Ọlọ́run á ránṣẹ́ wàhálà sáyé.
Fasting during Ramadan is obligatory. Exemptions are made for children, pregnant women, nursing mothers, and people who are ill or traveling. Those who are experiencing COVID-19 symptoms may not have to fast during Ramadan if they are not physically able.
As we prepare to observe this Ramadan period, we have a responsibility to continue to maintain appropriate level of respiratory hygiene and physical distancing. We'll be very, very strict with the rules, with the laws, and with all of the directives we've given, and we would expect that everyone would comply.
To get around the social distancing restrictions, some organizations and mosques have set up online preaching to address spiritual questions and is offering advice on how to benefit from the holy month.
The Prophet ﷺ has said, when there are epidemics or you hear of an epidemic, don't go to that place. Do not enter that city and do not leave that city. They say, a pandemic is like, a consuming fire. And human beings are like the wood, the fuel of that fire. If there is less fuel, there will be less intensity of the fire that is raging. So people should be tense. People should be tense. And that is the Islamic origin of staying at home.
Since the outbreak of this pandemic, COVID-19, we have been sending out several spiritual messages to our members. And we do that on a regular basis. What do we do with those messages? To elevate their emotions, to pep them up spiritually. Some of the little are down now because of the challenges that the world is facing.
Nígbà tí èyí tí mo wí nǹkan kọ́kọ́ ṣẹlẹ̀ ní 1946, etí àwọn bàbá wa fún gbogbo ayé ń gbà yẹn. Rabbi najini wa hali mimma ya'maluna Rabbi najini wa hali mimma ya'maluna. Ọlọ́run ọba yọ mí àti gbogbo àwọn ilé mi nípa gbogbo aburú tí àwọn èèyàn tí wọ́n dánú bí Ọlọ́run ọba tí wọ́n ń ṣe yìí.
Fasting is important according to Islamic scholars. It is no respecter of class or status. For Samiyat, a corner of a room is enough for her to praise and worship Allah.
This is the period whereby Almighty Allah has endowed us to do. He said, Atiullah, Atiu Rasulah. He said, you, my believers, believe in me, believe in God, believe in the prophet, and you believe in the authority, and you obey the authority.
It is time for Astri, afternoon prayer, but there is no adhan to call for the prayer. The minbar, altar, would also have to wait for more time with no exact time for the imam to resume his sermons to the presence of the congregation. We'll be back to fill these empty spaces. But that is definitely not this Ramadan. And that Ramadan special does it on today's edition of Inside Lagos. Many thanks for being a part of it. Remember, this is the period of Ramadan. Let's take responsibility to protect ourselves and our loved ones by adhering to physical distancing, washing your hands with soap before ablution, and to everyone, wearing a face mask is now compulsory. I'm Adedoja. Salam Adeni. See you next time.